Welcome, welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first, let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com and find out how athletic directors and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device and without needing any design experience. Like I love to say, it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com and start creating world-class marketing content. We also want to thank Huddle for their support. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to elevate the performance of their athletes using video and analytics. I used Huddle for years as a head football coach, and as an athletic director, we were a Huddle school. Our coaches just loved the smart cameras, the online platforms. The analytics has always been there, but there's so much more. It's also built for every level of play, whether you're a club or youth coach or high school or college or even the pros. Use Huddle to help their athletes perform at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes and the coaches you're trying to get to recruit them. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We also want to thank Final Forms. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration, but they're more than that. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and they provide your stakeholders with compliance and communication solutions, along with reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come with athletics. Final Forms can also help with team communication and attendance, and for athletic directors, Final Forms can help with certification management for coaches, with eligibility, with rosters, and all the forms that come across your desk. You know, it's time that you talked with a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you and your program, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to find out how you can join the Final Forms team. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown Ticketing is the trusted leader in digital ticketing. They help thousands of schools and organizations across the country seamlessly provide convenient digital ticketing options for communities, for their families, and their fans. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And to find out more about how Hometown Ticketing can help you and your program, go to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also connects you with 95% of the parents and the student athletes who really love your program. And it gives you tremendous positive feedback, but it also helps you identify that squeaky wheel parent, or even identify an issue that otherwise you wouldn't know about. If you've never used a survey to connect with the parents, with your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. We also want to thank snapraise.com for their support. Go to snapraise.com and find out how better fundraising can make better programs. Our coaches used SnapRaise in the past, and it was just fantastic. There's no more selling of products or managing lists. There's no upfront cost. Your data is secure, and you can track the progress of your fundraiser. Choosing the best fundraiser for you and your group is critical, and the SnapRaise digital fundraising difference can really help you out. As I said, it's easy and effective, it's safe and secure, and you can track the participation. Go to snapraise.com and check out the testimonials and see the thousands and thousands of dollars that they have helped schools and teams raise in the past couple of years. Change your fundraising game plan and start a fundraiser that works for you. Go to snapraise.com for more information. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive for their support. Their indoor scoring tables and video boards not only raise money for your department, but also create the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Our school is one of the first in Florida to have a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table, and it was just fantastic. Of course, we used it for games, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's a tremendously versatile tool, and their customer service is second to none. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or send them an email to sales@sidelineinteractive.com for more information. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. Well, we also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles and an entire library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments by going to vitalsignswalloffame.com. You can also email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com for more information. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. The vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. This has got to be one of my favorite interviews with one of my favorite people from the past. Our guest is Pedro Padilla. Pedro and I coached years ago, back in the 90s, at Missouri Valley College. He's currently the head football coach and the athletic coordinator at Holmes High School in San Antonio, Texas. Got a tremendous wealth of experience, and we're going to hear about that. But Pedro Padilla, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it. It's great to always see friendly things. Yeah.
We've been talking about this for a while, so glad we were able to get you on, and let's go and jump right into it. I know you're a busy guy getting ready for football. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up, and kind of take us up to those college years, and then we'll take a break and come back and talk about career. But what's the Pedro Padilla story?
Well, I've been born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. I was in the San Antonio Independent School District schooling. And at that time, you were at elementary, you knew your feeders. And so I graduated from Burbank High School in SISD in 1988. And the spring of 1988, I had a familiar friend by the name of Greg Purdom, our mentor, one of our mentors. Recruited me out of high school. We have a local all-star game, and Missouri Valley used to come and just clean up with local San Antonio kids. So my last day of May in high school, I committed to going to Missouri Valley College, a kid that had never been on a plane, that had only been out of Texas one time. And so it opened my eyes. So there I was. So I ended up having a great 4 years at Missouri Valley College, and lettered 4 years, great playoff experiences. It was also, one of those where it opened my eyes of being a city kid, saying there's more to the world than just being in San Antonio. And so it was an experience that I to this day, it was just really kind of set a foundation for what I do. From Missouri Valley College, I graduated in 1992, came home, and I went to my first non-competitive, at least coaching football game, and realized that I wanted to be a coach. And so decided to go back to school. And once again, Greg Purdom gets me a job at Missouri Valley College. I was the assistant defensive line coach, and then the head defensive line coach for 2 years. Great success, great staff. That's where we met. From there, the topic of had I ever considered being a GA came about. Didn't know what it was, and so ended up getting on at Northern State University. And so they were NAI in Aberdeen, South Dakota. One of our coaches had been a graduate assistant there. And once again, it opened my eyes to just another world of coaching and NCAA and NAI, the differences sometimes. I was there for a year, and I get a call from Kevin Grage, our mutual friend, and stated if I was interested in moving to Florida with Greg Purdom to Fernandina Beach High School. So there was a blizzard going on in Aberdeen, and I said, I think I can do it. So moved to Fernandina Beach, Florida, just north of Jacksonville with you guys. Defense coordinator, my first defense coordinator position for 2 years there. And then I had the opportunity to move back to San Antonio, Texas, where I was the head football coach at Edgewood High School. But I'll get into that here in a little bit. But yeah, it was just Burbank High School and Missouri Valley College, and kind of set that foundation as a player for me.
Yeah, for our listeners, hopefully you've heard of Missouri Valley College. It was then, and it still is, the winningest college football program in America at any level. You know, the highest winning percentage in history. And Pete mentioned Greg Purdom, the head coach and the athletic director. Pete had played there, had been a graduate assistant there, and they were looking for an OC. And Greg took a chance on a high school coach out in Oregon, and we all came together. Just a great time. And again, that was back in 1994, and here we are, almost 30 years later, still very good friends, still communicate a lot. It was just a great experience, professionally as well as personally. And Pete had an interesting college football career. He started as a defensive back and ended up finishing his playing career as a defensive lineman. You don't see that metamorphosis. Take us through that real quickly. How did that happen?
Well, I got recruited. I played linebacker, running back in high school, and then Coach Purdom decided that being a linebacker probably I wasn't big enough, but I was quick enough to play strong safety. And so the head coach at that time was Ken Gibler, and we were the old school, weak eagle defense, and I was that monster linebacker. Well, Coach Gibler ended up passing away, and Coach Purdom became the head coach, and we brought in defense coordinator by the Jim Cox. And Jim was a student of the Bears 46 defense. And so we went from safeties to linebackers to D-line, and fast guys that could run in the secondary. And so as I progressed, I think my position went with my weight. I started off as 190, and by the time my senior year, I was going about 220. And but we were very quick that year. We had a 4-6 season, but we led the nation in total defense. And so it was a great experience. And I'll be honest with you, it really did set my foundation as a defensive coordinator of how you can get smaller players to play at a very high level.
No, absolutely. When I went on after Missouri Valley to become a head coach at a couple of different schools, that 46, that Missouri Valley ambush defense, that came with me, and kids just loved it, and we had some good success. For our listeners, our guest today is Pedro Padilla. He's the head football coach and the athletic coordinator at Holmes High School in San Antonio, Texas. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com and start creating world-class marketing content for your school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. As I like to say, it's so simple, even I can do it. Our podcast announcements are all on Gipper templates, and you can start putting those templates to work for you. Go to Gipper.com for more information and start creating world-class marketing content. Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting with Pedro Padilla from Holmes High School in San Antonio, Texas. Pete, I think your career, has followed, that, let's say, traditional pattern, coaching, some teaching in there. But at one point, you make that move to the other side of the desk as an athletic director, as an athletic coordinator. How did that all play out, and how is it going so far at your new school?
Well, you're right. It started as even as a player. I was very fortunate at Missouri Valley to be close with our athletic director. When you're in a small college atmosphere, you get that idea that there is It's the first time I think in any athlete's uh, career where you actually see somebody in charge of both male and female sports, and to be able to identify that you're important to them as well. It's not just male sports, it's not just female sports, it's not just football, which there seems to be sometimes a stigma with that. And then moving along in my career, I was very blessed that when I left Fernandina Beach, Florida, as my first high school job, and even there, uh, my first phase of a high school athletic director, and so moving along, I think as I grew and I became a head football coach at 27 years old when I left Florida. And I realized what you said. What we always say is, I thought I knew everything, and I found out I didn't know anything. And really, it was a great experience. Loved being the district. It was in Edgewood ISD here in San Antonio. But it was a learning curve for me. It was understanding my role, and I think one of the things that I picked up through the years, and I'll talk a little bit more as we move along, it's the mindset that yes, coaching is important, but as you move into that coordinator role, it's about the big picture, and it's about thinking as an administrator. When I was 27, I didn't know that. At 27, I thought, well, if I win football games, everybody will love me. And I found out that it doesn't matter whether you win or whether you lose. If you don't set the foundation, you're just not going to be happy. Your parents aren't going to be happy. The kids aren't going to be happy, and the staff's not going to be happy. And so, for me, I think it was a tough life lesson that I had to learn at an early age. As I moved on and continued, got out of that head coaching role, I made it my point that in every position that I took from that point on, that I would do my best to help at least the head coach in their role as anybody that was an athletic coordinator as well. So when I left Edgewood, I ended up going to Bernie ISD, right outside San Antonio. Started off 8 years, the home of the Greyhounds, and worked from some really good head football coaches. But more importantly, I worked for a great athletic director by the name of Stan Leach. Now, Coach Leach was the athletic director about 2 years before I got there, and I got there in 2000. And even in that learning curve for me, you see decisions that he had to make, and probably even as a coach that had been a head coach, there's some things I was like, I don't see it, I don't get it. But he always came with try to be a compromise of a win-win situation, and don't put yourself in a situation that you can't get yourself out of. I think we also we have a lot of pride in what we think is the right thing, and sometimes we don't open up ourselves to other people. And Coach Leach was very good about listening to people. The most important lesson I think that he ever taught me was just listen. Don't add to the conversation, because sometimes we say things that the parent didn't even think about, or the kid, or we add. And so that was an important lesson for me as we moved along. I moved to Northside, and once again, I went from a one-town school to now, at that time, there was 10 high schools. And once again, you coach, and I'll be honest with you, I was still in that phase of my life where, God, wins are still important. I was probably 15 years, still hadn't been, I understood the AD part, but still not all the way. And then moving to, I was at one school in Marshall High School here in Northside, and then I moved to Holmes High School, where I'm currently at. This is the place that changed my career. It changed my life, my perspective. And I was a defensive coordinator. My head coach, his name is Eddie Salas. He was actually my assistant coach at Bernie. He becomes the head coach and offers me a defense coordinator position. At Holmes High School, we are a Title I school. We are classified as a low economic. And so once again, our purpose has always been to build people, and this was the perfect groundwork for me, where it was an opportunity to be put in a situation where you had to change your process of what is success. What are the things that we see that we can build on? What can we get data on? And so through the leadership we had, and through our leadership, we have Stan Lang, who's really involved in our Texas High School Coaches Association. He's really led the league of creating our brand of who we are, not in the win-loss area, but our commitment to our kids to help them see hope and value on a daily basis. And so for me, it changed my life. It moved me along, and it gave me a purpose and a actually goal when it comes to doing that. Ended up leaving Holmes High School, moved on to a brand new high school named Harlan High School. And once again, it was a brand new school, a little bit further outside of San Antonio. Demographics changed a little bit, but what I found out was the need was still there. It didn't matter, whether it was a Title I or whether it was a school that was a little bit more in a different area. The kids still needed to be taken care of. And so I continued that philosophy, and I'll be very honest with you. I had applied for different jobs, and I tell everybody that, number one, I had to practice applying, and I caught myself when I knew I was successful in my interviews, when I started thinking once again as an athletic director, not as a head football coach. And that really changed it. So now, coming back to Holmes High School, that is really the philosophy that I take in, that as we move in, what is best for kids at all costs. Kids are the most important things. Adults are adults. We've taken care of ourselves. But what I have found out is, being an athletic coordinator, you tend to deal with adults more than you do with the kids. And I really have to make time, because I am the head football coach. I have to make sure that I set my clock and make time for those kids when they're with us.
Yeah. Again, I can look back at many stops in my career where those same things were going on. You talk about listening. I've said this many times, that's something I wish I would have learned much earlier in my career, the value of just, and I use this in my presentations now. I'll tell coaches, shut up and listen. Okay. Just so valuable. And on those, the focus on winning, you and I, we were very successful programs. We've been a part of many successful programs. We all want to win, but you're absolutely right. When you start, when you put that focus on the kids, and you start doing all those other things, the wins generally follow. It's not the goal. Winning's not the goal. It's just an outcome of doing all those things right. Yeah, really good stuff. For our listeners, we're visiting today with Pedro Padilla, the athletic coordinator and the head football coach at Holmes High School in San Antonio, Texas. We're going to take another break, but we'll be right back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the trusted leader in digital technology. Hometown helps thousands of schools and organizations across the country seamlessly provide convenient digital ticketing options for their communities, their families, and their fans. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And to find out more about how Hometown Ticketing can help you and your program, go to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Welcome back, everyone. Once again, our guest is Pedro Padilla from Holmes High School in San Antonio, Texas. Pete, you already alluded to a couple of the mentors that you've had in your career, and none of us get to where we're at on our own. There's always a couple of people there patting us on the back or kicking us in the butt. So who are some of the people that have helped you along the way?
Yeah, well, I think, to be honest with you, I really feel like it even goes back to my middle school years. I think right now, especially, being post-COVID, we're still in somewhat of a COVID area. We're finding that those kids at that early age, their first relationship outside of the home is their teachers and their coaches. And I was very blessed in the SISD that I had, I still remember them, Coach Long and Coach Kelly. And there was a couple of, they were just tough men that expected, I always laugh because I think now we see a lot of books and we see things that talk about character development. I tell them when I see them, and some of them have passed, is, you were doing character development before it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were I think coaches were the lead when it comes to our learning groups in education. But so those two men were that foundation. I think it's important because they're the ones that made me love the sport itself, love playing multiple sports. Moving on to high school, Gary Sutton was my high school coach. And I'll be honest with you, I was not a good kid. I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't mean or anything. I was just mischievous and made some bad decisions. And if it wasn't for Gary Sutton and George DeLeon, who still to this day both are my mentors, uh, I wouldn't be where I'm at. There's no doubt. I tell everybody those two men saved my life as a youth, because they took the time. They built relationship with my parents. My parents today still love them, still ask about them, and I'm very blessed that they're still in my lives. And then they really kept me going and promoted me playing other sports. And so those were the foundation, I think, as a outside of my own father, the men in my lives that helped it. And we had some great female coaches too. Julia Castillo was the girls volleyball coach. She was my English teacher. She ended up becoming an athletic director later. And same thing, the influence on my life to create that personal relationship really set that foundation. Now going into college, obviously, and I've mentioned, Ken Gibler, one of the best people I've ever met in my life at Missouri Valley College. He was so patient, but firm. And one thing I learned about him is he always said, a man is only as good as his word. And to this day, I still think about that is, you do what you say, and say what you do, let people know about it. And so it was one of those that it was, once again, I'd never met a man like that was so true and pure in his thoughts. And that was in the day when, you had dress code and, you didn't cut your hair, you couldn't get on the bus, and then, obviously Greg Purdom, and I know, you've given a shout out in the Athletic Director's Toolbox, Greg, to many of us, for good, bad, what he was kind of the standard for a lot of us. You took the things you liked, took the things you didn't like, and he was okay with that. He promoted that he is who he is, and take what he does well, and if you don't like it, don't do it. And so he really was a foundation, because we talk here in Northside about going beyond the game for our kids, and Greg did that. He took a personal investment in my life. He changed my life. He changed my coaching path. He changed my career. I could not say enough words. Again, when he got inducted to the Hall of Fame at Missouri Valley College, I couldn't say enough good words. I was unfortunate I couldn't go there because I was in season, but I told him I blamed him because he made me a coach. But you really, I can't say enough of the influence that we have on our kids, because that one little word, it might be a 2-minute conversation, could last a lifetime. And he was definitely one of those that, once again, I could not say enough positive things about him, and I'm just blessed to have him alive. The other thing I think what Greg did is he brought a great staff together. That was a good group. I was very blessed at a very early age. And I'll tell you something, Coach, is that what we're finding out is people are getting out of our profession. And it's tough as educators. It's tough athletically. You guys did a great job of mentoring me, of making me like coaching, making me like the idea that it's okay to, if you're going to spend time away from the family, make it worthwhile and make it for the right reasons, and to enjoy that we work with each other, because I think that was important. You guys were all role models as husbands, as fathers. It really kind of said, okay, you can have it all, and you can do things that you want to do and still give the kids and not lose focus on who you are as a person and at home. And obviously it's great when we have supportive families as well. With you guys at Missouri Valley College, I think the next two men in my life were Dennis Miller and Ken Heupel. Dennis was the head coach at Northern State University. One of the just nicest men I'd worked around. Very smart. He was the first doctor that I knew of that was a coach. I didn't know guys were doctors as coaches. I was like, oh, okay. So it also helped me strive, and that's where I, when earning my master's degree. And then, working with Ken Heupel, Ken and I were, I was his assistant coach, and he taught me about being tough, but still being able to love and care for people. Sometimes if you're a young guy and you don't see that, you don't understand what they're meaning. And Ken would always be very kind of tough with us as coaches. But what the bottom line I got from him is, if you don't do things right, you're cheating the kids out. And that was something that I still remember this day, is just do things right, because if not, the kids that are the only ones that suffer. Moving along, I mentioned before, Stan Leach at Bernie ISD, just detrimental. He's just one of the great guys. He's very involved in his local church, FCA. That was another thing that I wasn't involved with. He did coaches devotionals. Those were just things that I learned. And then had a couple of head coaches there. One in particular, Danny Threadgill. And Danny was just a mentor in terms of helping me kind of be it. Hey, you can be flexible. You can make sure you surround yourself with good people. And Danny was just that guy that taught you how to be a head coach. Even when I left Danny, I kind of apologized, because I said, Danny, I should have done more as an assistant, but a great person. And then finally moving into Northside ISD. A question I got asked when I first came to Holmes High School was, Eddie Salas was your assistant coach at Bernie. How does it feel for him to be your athletic coordinator now? And my answer to that was simple. I believe that I was a mentor to Eddie Salas to help him become the athletic coordinator because of my experience. I helped him grow into that role because I took care of the football things. I took care of some other things that he needed to grow into that position. And now, he just got onto our board for our Texas High School Coaches Association. So, those are things. And then finally, that is Stan Lang. Stan Lang is, Northside ISD we're the 4th largest district in San Antonio. Excuse me, I take that back. State of Texas. We're the 4th largest district. And so Coach Lang has sit down and we have our Beyond the Game program, where we sit there and we make sure that we are diversified in what we're teaching our kids. What are we providing for them that is outside the X's and O's, going beyond the game? And so, to set that foundation, know what the goal of our district is, it really puts us at ease to know that, yes, once again, the wins and losses is our goal, but our purpose to make sure that we develop character into our kids and then make sure that they're successful adults when they leave us. And so, those were the men in my lives as coaches, as athletic directors, as head coaches. I'm sure there's a lot that I've left out, but there's plenty of men and women in my life that have made a difference and in different phases of my career. And I'm just blessed to be in a situation where I'm back in this role again, and I can use my 29 years of experience to kind of formulate my plan here at Holmes High School.
No, absolutely. Our regular listeners know I say this all the time, but I just love listening to the stories and, the people that are important to each one of us. And, you look back, obviously I look back on those Missouri Valley days, with great, great fondness. I think one of those keys, that you talked about, being happy is, finding that fit. And I think I did a pretty good job as a head coach, but I think my best fit was that assistant coach, that coordinator, where I really felt part of a team, and you alluded to it, Greg, he had high expectations, but he kind of let you alone, do your job. I've got other things to do, you do your job. I know that was Coach Doolin's phrase, do your job on defense, but very cool stuff. Thanks so much for sharing that. For listeners, our guest is Pedro Padilla. He's the head football coach and the athletic coordinator at Holmes High School in San Antonio. We're going to take another break, I know, but let's give a shout out to our sponsors that make this possible. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank Final Forms for their support. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration, but they're more than that. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and they provide schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility. They have reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come with athletics. Final Forms can also help with team communication and attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this with secure language Congratulations. It's time for you to take the next steps and talk to someone who's walked in your shoes. To find out what Final Forms can do for you and your program, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started on the Final Forms team. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Pedro Padilla, the athletic coordinator at Holmes High School. Pete, you've been doing this for a long time. You mentioned, almost 30 years, and you're just getting started. We've got a lot of younger ADs, many who are just literally taking their very first job in athletic administration. And I think it's important to kind of talk about those first steps. So, you took the job at Holmes in January. What were some of the first things that you did coming in as the new athletic coordinator?
Well, I think it's important when you come in to, number one, be who you are. And I think that as we are as individuals, our actions really determine who we are. And as long as we're consistent in those, because just like the kids, they want to see transparency. They don't want somebody coming in and telling us false stories or, I don't want to say the word being dishonest, but just being honest and upfront of your expectations. And I think too, one of the biggest things is you don't know what you don't know. I mean, and to live with that. I'll tell you what, I've been here since January. I've had great days. I've had great weeks, and I've also had bad days and bad weeks. My athletic director, Stan Lang, tells me that, just a reminder that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And at the end of the day, you have to put things away and sit there and go, okay, my day is over, go home and be Pete Padilla, the dad and the husband. And I think those are the big things I had to learn very early on is you're not going to solve the world's problems in, overnight, but also that you're going to have to be able to put that time together to manage it as a administrator, as an educator, knowing that you answer to other people, but also knowing that people answer to you, and also know that your words matter. I think that was one of the things that first day that I told a coach, hey, I need to see you. And when he walked in, and I'd known this guy for 10 years as a coach along with myself. And he said, Coach, what did I do wrong? I said, nothing. I just wanted to see you. He goes, oh, thank God. He goes, Coach, your words matter. And it really opened my eyes of the role that we have and the obligation we have to make sure that what we say is real and what we say means things, because now it affects a lot of people. And so early on when I got here was trying to just let the coaches know who I am, what I am about. And the two things that I always say is I'm honest and I have integrity. And hopefully through my actions as we move along that I can share that I can show people that that's who I truly am.
I still remember one of my very first jobs as a teacher and a coach in a middle school, and the athletic director. It was never good morning. It was never how's it going. It was I need to see you, and just those words just were chilling. And sometimes it was good. As a young coach, sometimes it wasn't good. But I just told myself kind of subconsciously, I'm never going to use that phrase in that way. I need to see you, because it was just so defeating. So,
well, and I think too that, like I said, it's learning process as we go along. I think that anybody that's new into it, and like I said, I've been blessed, even though I was in this position, being a coordinator director at an early age really taught me that there's a lot to learn. And I think, even you doing this, you get some ideas, I think one of the things that we also have to be and when we talk about honesty is what are things you're good at and what are things you're not good at? I think those are the key factors that I'm still in the process of going, what, not only that, one of the things we talk about is communication. And in my mind, I'm going like, well, I'm really good at it. Well, there's a lot more to it, and especially when you talk about people and personalities, sometimes things mean different things to different people. And I'm learning that. I heard you, but did I understand you? I think there's a big difference. And so I think as a new coordinator, understanding that, and And obviously, and I know you've had a lot of people mention this in your book, is uh, being open. Don't shut people out, because there's a lot of people smarter than us making this that can make decisions, and to be able to learn how to delegate. And those are things that I'm working on as an athletic coordinator, because I'd always been the guy to do it. And now I have so much more on my plate. I have to really learn, and I'm getting better at it, to be able to delegate and to communicate freely. But I think knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and being open to those strengths and weaknesses, and not to take anything personal from your bosses, and then also make sure that you have empathy for those that are working with you and for you.
Oh no, absolutely. Boy, you're sharing all these tools. You got to save a couple of those for your
Oh, I
toolbox
got
segment at the end. Okay. For our listeners, our guest is Pedro Padilla, the athletic coordinator and the head football coach for Holmes High School in San Antonio. Another quick break, but we'll be back. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help elevate the performance of their athletes using video and analytics. Huddle is the complete performance platform. They've got online tools, they've got smart cameras, they've always had analytics, but there's so much more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high school and colleges. And even the pros use Huddle to help their teams play at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes and the coaches, the college teams you're trying to get to recruit them. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program, and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back, everyone. Our guest is Pedro Padilla from Holmes High School, San Antonio, Texas. Coach, one of the things we try to do with this podcast is the idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you have done at your schools, or maybe you've seen them at other schools, but what are some things that when you take a step back, you can say with equal parts pride and humility, boy, we really do a great job with this? Do you have any best practices you can share?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I am at a Title I school, and I think sometimes there's kind of labels that go along with Title I, is, poor and low, economic. It just means that our kids get free lunch and breakfast. I mean, that's really it. We do get some state money that helps out with teachers and to promote different groups. One of the things I think we do really well, especially, I'm very proud of it, and I'm still looking at the data that I'm collecting, is how much we are involved with the community. Holmes High School, I had mentioned off our cast, was at one time #1 team in the nation. They had very success in their early 80s and 90s, and as the district has gotten larger, we have become more of a city school. But we are still, what I would say, one of the lead schools when it comes to helping out our community. I say Holmes High School is the Times Square of Northside. This place is 24/7. We open up our community to feel welcome. This is the what I say, it's a community within the community. We do a lot of food drives to help out. Our kids collect, our kids distribute. We work with the food bank. When all the pandemic started hitting, Northside took the lead in San Antonio, and we were able to serve not hundred but thousands of meals, and our kids were out there in the forefront. And we still continue that. One of the things I think we're proud of continue is, once again, is even going to our middle schools and to our elementaries. We have what we call a transition coach, where coaches are in charge of really being the liaison between the high school and the middle school. We help that transition. We have a male and female that go, and we talk about character development. We talk about expectations. That middle school time is very important for us. So what we don't want is the first time the kids see our face is when they get to high school. I think sometimes we use that tactic. Well, wait till you get to high school. It's going to be different. Well, our goal is to make sure it's not that different, and to make sure that we have friendly faces, but also have high expectations. I think kids, when they go from 6 middle school coaches here in Northside to on one side of on the male side or the female side, then they come to 30 coaches. It's a big difference. It's a big jump. And so we have a transition coach, and then we also do go and do elementary mentoring. We work with communities and schools here in San Antonio, which provide services for at-risk students and for all the students on campus. And we identify kids that need athletics. And so what we do is we'll pair them up with a high school kid. We'll have topics of character development. They'll discuss 10 minutes, they're little kids, and then we'll go play. They'll do some sports, some activities. Some will just sit and talk. And what we find is those kids will tend to share with our athletes just how they're feeling. And it's a good role model. And it shows our kids that you are a role model and that you are more than just an athlete. To these kids, you're their heroes. You're the ones that they desire to be. And so I've been very proud of our kids. Anytime, and the school district knows this, anytime they need help, we're there. And we're there we'll get 35 to 40 kids without any hesitation. And so I'm very proud of that fact, because even though our community probably in some areas needs service, we've definitely grown the idea that we need to serve others. And this has been a tradition at Holmes High School, and I look forward to continue carrying this on.
Those are such great ideas. And again, most of my career post Missouri Valley was in private schools that most of the time were K through 12. And so it was normal for our kids and our coaches to have those outreach programs down into our own middle school and even into the elementaries to start creating that brand loyalty and that awareness and introduce the coaches. And I was amazed that more public schools didn't follow that model to, create those relationships ahead of time. So it sounds like you're really doing a great job with that. And also, reaching out into the community. So important that it's service first. And then, oh, by the way, how can we help you out? So yeah, absolutely. Really cool. Once again, for our listeners, our guest is Pedro Padilla, the head football coach and the athletic coordinator for Holmes High School, San Antonio, Texas. Going to take another quick break, but we'll be back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive. Their indoor scoring tables and video boards not only create revenue for your department, but also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Our school is one of the first in Florida to have a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table, and it was just fantastic. We used it for home games. We also used it for pep rallies, used it for signing ceremonies. Tremendously versatile tool, and their customer service was just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or send them an email to sales@sidelineinteractive.com for more information. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Coach Padilla, 100 years ago, when I was in high school, our coaches would say things like, come on, Jake, you got to suck it up, or come on, Jake, you got to be tough. And we kind of knew what they meant, and we did it. In the many years since then, we've learned, I think, far better ways to communicate with our kids and our athletes. But I still feel that toughness is an important trait and something that we should help kids develop. So how can we help kids to develop toughness while at the same time be sensitive to the social, emotional challenges that a Generation Z kid experiences that, you and I never had to go through? Do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, I mentioned this. I had a coaches retreat last week where our football coaches, we were able to get away for a couple of days, and we discussed this. You hear that term old school, and I think that's a false term sometimes, because coaches could say what they wanted and when they wanted, and that was true. I mean, I'm not going to say it didn't happen out there, but also there was a lot of good men that said great things. That's why we became coaches. I think if it was so miserable, we probably wouldn't have gone into the profession. So I think also when we look at the term toughness, there's two parts that I look at it. I look at the physicality, obviously, and more importantly, the mental toughness that we talk about. We're growing up, their kids are growing up with social media where they have to have constant instant feedback. One of the things that I have found I think it's very difficult is kids have a hard time seeing I'll give you an example in football. One kid messes up, and well, everybody's got to do an extra sprint or an up down, whatever it is. Kids have a hard time with that. Wait a minute, I didn't mess up. He messed up. That's why I love team sports so much, because it develops that idea that we're a team, that one mess up does affect a lot of people. And I do think that that's what sports do. I tell people this, in my opinion, besides the military, we're really one of the first activities that kids have that show discipline and honor and integrity and toughness. And so when I look at that, I think also it depends on schools you're at. I think when that culture of toughness, it may be where you grow up. I'll give you a great example. What I tell people about kids at Holmes High School, I don't have to worry about their toughness in terms of they're not going to back down from anybody. You know, some of our kids have to walk home in certain areas. They're just not great sometimes. So it's not like they're afraid of a lot of things. They're not afraid of some opponent, you know, in another helmet, that's for sure. What I have to work on is the toughest of the mental toughness. Can you handle pressure? You know, I live in a community in San Antonio in general, we're a high Hispanic population, where we have this term machismo, where you hold everything in. And sometimes you got to get that out of kids. It's okay. It's okay to let us know how you feel. And so I think some of the things I work on is, it's not so much the physical part, but it's the mental of going, all right. I asked the kids this question. I thought it was a very odd question for them. I said, how do you want to be coached? And they all looked at me like I was crazy. They go, Coach, what do you mean? You know, coach yells at us, they yell at us. If they just tell us, they tell us. I said, well, it's important because it's not a one shoe fits all. You have to understand the individual, and you have to be vocal. And to me, it's part of being the grow up process, is say what you want, because if not, people will just do what they want to do. And so when we talk about toughness, it's the communication for them to understand that you can say yes, you can say no, and it's okay. And then the other part of it, you know, when I went to another school that was a little bit, I would say, off economically as a whole, one of the things I would tell even the parents is, how do you make kids who have had everything they wanted in life tough? And my family included, you know, they've got the private school, they've got the AirPods, they've got the shoes. How do you make them tough? Because they're not walking to school these days. They're not, you know, they're doing these things. So to me now, it's the work that they have to put in at your practice. And more importantly, which I think our society has kind of fallen a little bit, is the expectations. I say the kids will rise to the expectation if you set the standard. Now, it's not easy, and it's not, you know, it's not always perfect. But if you always tell them, I always, when kids get in trouble or something happens, I said, look, this is the expectation. Do you understand? And if they say yes, then okay, now from this point on, let's learn and grow from it. Those are the skills that I think our kids are not learning. You know, it's, hey, if it's not a like, they don't love me. If I don't smile the right way. And one of the terms my good friend Eddie Sales, we always talked about is, you know, you look at a brand new refrigerator, you open it up and you've got choices. But if you go to the back, you might see some rotten fruit in there. And so we don't get the core in there and go, man, what makes this kid tick? We'll never challenge them and see how far we could push them to be tough. And so that's where the relationship part comes in, is some kid, I don't even have to tell him. I had a kid here that I get here at 6:30. He's here at 6. You know, I've got other kids and coaches that, you know, you said, hey, well, 6:30, I'll be here at 6:30. You know, there's a different mindset that I think if you set the standard, the kids, but a lot of it comes with relationships and expectations and going back to, you don't know what you don't know. And I think it's important that even within the teams, I always hear this, come on, freshmen, get equipment, or freshmen do this, or freshmen do that. I said, well, do you know that kid's name? Well, no. Okay, well, no. Then introduce yourself. Have a relationship within the program so that kid goes, okay. So when that kid's a senior, he's telling a kid the same thing. Hey, Bobby, make sure you pick up that bag, or, you know, set the standard, you know. And that's really one of the things I feel that when it comes to toughness, we have to have, it's the expectation that makes the toughness. And then obviously the journey to get there is what we do as a living.
Yeah, you hit on so many important things there. Communicating, well, this is what we mean by tough, building those relationships so you can be tough, and explaining, as you said, to kids and to parents, hey, there's a toughness component to this experience. And do you understand that? Very, very good stuff. We're going to take another quick break. We're almost done with our breaks, but we got to do them. This is the Educational AD Podcast. Please stay with us. We also want to say thanks to our newest sponsor, SnapRaise. Go to snapraise.com and see how better fundraising can make your program better. Get away from the headaches of the past. No more selling products or managing lists or inventory. Okay. Snapraise.com is one of the best fundraisers that you can choose for your group. Our coaches used it for years, and it was just fantastic. Put the SnapRaise digital fundraising difference to work for you. It's easy and effective, it's safe and secure, and you can track participation and progress. Go to snapraise.com and check out the thousands of dollars that they have helped teams and athletic departments raise over the years. Get your program growing with snapraise.com. If you change your fundraising game plan and start a fundraiser that works for you, you're going to be amazed with the results. Go to snapraise.com and see what they can do for you and your athletic program. That's snapraise.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Coach, one of the questions we've been asking almost since the very beginning has to do with this idea of social awareness. So you've already talked a lot about your school's large population, Title I. That's certainly one aspect of social awareness. But how can we do a better job with our stakeholders, with our kids, our parents, our coaches? How can we do a better job of being socially aware?
Well, I think once again, when we talk about the learning and, here we have our PLTs, which we come together as groups, as departments, and we make sure that we have the big plan and how we're going to set the lesson out. Well, we know that in our society that coaches have really taken that lead. That's the way we organize our practices. We have the big idea, we break off an individual, how we're going to teach it, come together as a group, and then hopefully the team aspect takes control. And the reason I bring this up is, and I will, once again, I'll use sports as a great example. A book I just read, the locker room, and it really talks about America's locker room. And it's important for me because I think that we have the tools as athletic directors, as coaches, to set the tone, not only what we do inside our playing area, but to create this environment outside of our playing area. We know that when we go into our team meetings, there is a diverse group of kids. There's some, once again, that are well off. Some may have economic challenges. Some are single parents. Some live with grandparents. We have military. There's a lot of things that we have to take into idea where we sit there and we look at how does our team work and how do we kind of eliminate some of those maybe negative ideas and create that winning attitude. Well, moving out into society and even with our kids, I think it's important, once again, it goes back to the relationships and with the understanding. I think coaches have done a great job, especially through the years of understanding the social movement. As we know, sports plays a big role in the social movement. I mean, you see the NFL, the NBA, see the women's basketball, the women's soccer. These are all sports that have taken stands to understand that there's something wrong. There's something that's maybe wrong. But we also live the greatest country in the world where we need to understand that there are a lot of mistakes and we have to grow as a country. And to me, going back to athletics and the role it plays, it's vital that we understand your student body and also understand the kids that you play. I think that's one of the things that understanding your community. Going from Fernandina Beach High School to John F. Kennedy High School there were just two different environments. You had, and then even in Florida, you get kids that, maybe lived in a very well-off, beachside community, and others that had to kind of come in that were a little bit more inner city. And so it was a great mix of kids. And I think here and any school that you're at, to understand your demographics, understand your community, uh, but to more important to be open, because our society is changing. If you don't tell the truth, they're going to go on the internet and find their own truth, and they're going to find out what's out there, what's right, what's wrong. And it's our job, or at least our role, I think, is to help mentor, at least foster the communication and be open to it. One of the mistakes that I think we can make as leaders is kind of deferring it. And, well, it's not in my locker room. It is. It's in America's locker room. And so when I sit there and I look at what we do as coaches, it's important that we go out and create the sportsmanship and respecting your opponents, and seeing them as opponents, not as individual people, but also know that within your community and within your team, especially if it's a very diverse, that everybody has their own backgrounds and beliefs. So, when I was at my last school, I would talk about that to our kids, and especially when we talked about, the George Floyd incident is, in America, I talk to a lot of moms and dads is, I tell them, I go, I don't want you to ever be a statistic. I don't want that to happen to you. And like I said, and to say that it's not happening, it is happening. We see it in the media. Just now with social media, we get to see it firsthand. And so it's important that we address it, that it's not the elephant in the room. I just think that it's one of those proud moments where you can have a true impact and know that you are what I would consider the ground level of social awareness. Is we are the first ones that are going to raise our kids to know that we do have differences, but it's not because of the skin color or because of your preference or because of your religion, that we're all in this for one purpose, and that's to create better people. And the fun part is to win some games, and so I think that's a very important part, is just to be aware of your kids. And that goes back to relationships. Know your locker room, know what the kids are saying, and make sure that you have a clear communication with those kids, because they're going to tell you what's happening, whether it's with another school or on your campus. You're going to know there's no secrets, and coaches, we're the worst at keeping secrets. And so that's kind of where I feel that we have an important role of at least setting that foundation and setting the leadership style to understand that we need to expand our locker room to our community and to our city and our state and our country.
Yeah. Again, you bring up such a great point. Sports, the sporting experience, the kids, the coaching, the games, the locker room, you name it. It's a ready-made platform for all of those things that you talked about, the relationships, the respecting others. But coaches have that responsibility to make sure they're using it, utilizing it and maximizing it. So really cool stuff. Pete, I keep calling you Pete because that's what I called you for years. But Pedro, this has been more than cool, spending this time with you, catching up a little bit and hearing how things are going for you. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, we've established that you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. But in just a minute, I'm going to task you with sending out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. We're going to take another quick break and hear from Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack that sponsor the Toolbox segment. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Pedro Padilla is going to put in his athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. We use surveys for years at our schools, and they were just fantastic. 95% of the time, they come back overwhelmingly positive from parents and kids, but they can also help identify that squeaky wheel parent that maybe just needs an opportunity to vent. And who knows, maybe even will point out something that you as an athletic director want to take a deeper look at and help avoid a small issue from turning into a big one. Go to athleticsurveys.com or send them an email at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Well, it's that time. We've been visiting with Pedro Padilla, the athletic coordinator at Holmes High School in San Antonio, Texas. Again, he's got a tremendous athletic background, a player, a coach, and as an administrator. But now we're going to ask him to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 tools in their toolbox. Pedro Padilla, what 3 things are going to go into your athletic director toolbox?
Well, and as we do, we steal from others. And, the best advice is what I would give any new director is it's not a marathon. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I think anytime we get into a position, we feel like we have to run through it and get everything done. And so that's the important part. Then the second one, and maybe it's probably the best one, is the communication. Learning how to communicate, learning how to listen, and make sure that it's 100% of what you truly mean, because I think those are important. They go a long way. And I think the last one, one of the other things is make sure going into this position that you have empathy and love. You love what you do. You love the coaches you work with. You love the environment you want to create. And more importantly, you love the kids. And those decisions you make will be based on that. And I think the last one is just have integrity. I think that gets lost in society today. I think, especially since we are trying to hire teachers and coaches, we just want to create a great environment for people to come to work. And we don't want it to be a job. We always say this is not a job. This is our lifestyle. We want to create that. It's our obligation as athletic directors and coordinators to create the life that you had that made you want to be a coach and as a coordinator. And I was very blessed because of that. And I think I want to continue that when people come to my campus, they go, you know what? I like working on our campus. I love working for our kids. And I was glad I was here, because ultimately it's your family environment that you're going to create away from your family at home. And so to me, those are the things, is just to just keep things in perspective of what your role is, and take it seriously, but also know that at the end of the day, you still have to another day to move on and to be better every day.
Great stuff. And you actually came up with a unique tool. We've done over 300 interviews, and no one's ever put the tool in of, they've talked about patience, but they've never said, hey, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So that's going to be going into the 3rd edition of the Athletic Director's Toolbox. Pete, I didn't do this when we did our best practices, so I definitely want to do it now. If one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain a little bit, find out a little bit more, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, email is always the best. I can tell you it's at Pedro, Pedro, Padilla, Padilla, at NISD.net. And I'm more than welcome to reach out to anybody. It's the best way. That's what I get my information on, is I call other people, and I'm blessed. I've coached all over the country. And so I have a lot of relationships out there. And so people are just a text or a phone call or an email away.
Again, listeners, I encourage you to follow up with that. I can attest to, Pete's knowledge and his willingness to share, great stuff. Pedro Padilla, thanks so much for being on the podcast, and all the best moving forward this year.
Thank you.
For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. And we want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. Remember, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen consoles and an entire library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, and go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. You can also email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com for more information. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. Thanks again for listening to the podcast today. We hope you enjoyed it. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast.